Hi guys. So for today's lesson, we're going to be dealing with two-way tables and just going over some of the basic sort of stuff with these. What do I mean by a two-way table? So it's another tool that's used to represent events that overlap. So very similar to Venn diagrams, which also consider events which overlap, as you can see here. Okay, so consider the following Venn diagram. So you can see here we've got a netball circle, we've got a rugby circle. We can see that 10 people like or play rugby. We're not sure really what, but we know that 10 people are for both, and we can see that 5 people are for neither. Now we can represent this Venn diagram as a two-way table instead. So the way that we do this is we're still going to work with these numbers, but a two-way table actually shows you even more information. Okay, so the way to set up a two-way table is to first up look at your netball circle. You're going to write a box for netball, and you're going to write a box underneath it for not netball. So these two things are going to be the complete opposite of each other. And then you're also going to do the same for the other circle. So here we've got rugby, and then next to it you need to have the opposite, which is not rugby. So you've got ones going on top of each other, and then the other ones going left and right of each other. And you end up making a table. So you pretty much want to then put all these lines in between each other like this, and you set up a table. Once you do that, you also want to have a column for the totals, and a row down the bottom for totals as well. So you end up getting a whole heap of lines all over the place. Okay, so what do we do with this two-way table? Well, we can use these numbers first up. Okay, so I see that there is 5 people that like neither. So that is going to go in the not rugby, because they don't like rugby, and they don't like netball, not netball as well. So there's 5 people that are in the neither section. So the 5 goes right there. The 10, which is both, they like rugby and netball. So where these two line up, this square here, this 10, I'll do it in a different color. I might use that. This 10 here represents both rugby and netball, so that's why the 10 is there. This 6 here, that's in the netball only part. So that's netball, but not rugby. So these two line up into this box here. So that's where I put my 6. And so let's change color. And then this 9 here, that represents. Sorry, I don't like that color. Okay, so this 9 here for rugby only. So that means it's in the rugby section, but it's in the not netball section because it's rugby only. So this 9 goes right there. Okay, now that we've got these 4 squares done, now we can do our totals. So 10 and 9 makes a total of 19. That suggests that there's a total of 19 people that like rugby. And you can also see that from this entire circle. There's 19 people in the rugby circle. This row here, that comes to 11. So that means there's 11 people that don't like rugby. And you can see that from the 6 and the 5. There's 11 people outside the rugby circle. And going across, 6 and 10 makes 16. So there's 16 people that like netball, as you can see from the entire netball circle, 16. And then 9 and 5, that makes a 14. So there's 14 people, 9 and 5, that don't like netball. And then finally, total the totals. So 16 and 14 makes 30. And that should be the same this way as well. 19 and 11 make 30 as well. So that is a completed two-way table. So really important to understand that, like this box here, which is netball and not rugby, that represents like netball only, because that means netball and not rugby in this scenario. So I want you to notice that the two-way table shows a lot more information compared to the Venn diagram. The Venn diagram kind of only gives you 4 pieces of info, whereas a two-way table has a lot more sort of information. So they're a little bit easier to understand, but they do take a bit more time to set up. Okay, let's do an example question. So 40 people were interviewed at a shopping mall. 24 people liked Woolworths, 30 people liked Coles out of these people that were interviewed, and 7 people liked neither. So we can represent this sort of situation in a two-way table because we need to consider the fact that there are people that may like both Woolworths and Coles. So it's an overlapping sort of situation. So how do we make our two-way table? Okay, well, first up, we need to actually make the table. We've got Woolworths as one event, liking Woolworths, and the other one is liking Coles. So when we're making our two-way tables, let's start with Woolies. So Woolies goes first, and then the opposite, not Woolies, goes underneath. And then along the top, we've got Coles, and then next to it, not Coles. And then we literally make all these lines, pretty much make tables in between them, etc. Okay, so, and remember your total columns and rows as well. Okay, so let's use the information they've given you. So we know there's 40 people that were interviewed. That means the total of the totals has to be 40. Really important, good place to start. 24 people liked Woolworths. So that means in the total people that like Woolies, there's 24 people, so we can put a 24 there. 30 people liked Coles. So that means in the total Coles column, we know 30 people liked Coles. And 7 people liked neither. So that the neither section was not Coles and not Woolies, so they line up to give that spot there. So that's 7 right there. So the information, they've literally just given us 4 numbers, and we've got to know where to put those numbers. Now that we've got these numbers here, we can use them to fill in the gaps that we don't know. So I look at this and I think, well, if that's 30 and that's 40, right here would have to be a 10, so it works out. And then you can keep going. If that's a 10 there, that would have to be a 3 because they got to add together to give the right amounts. So once you're doing that sort of process, you can eventually get every single extra number. You can fully complete your table, your two-way table. Once you've completed your two-way table, you can use it to figure out certain probabilities. So first up, what's the probability of picking someone who does not like Coles? So the way to do that is to go to the not Coles section. So not Coles is right here. How many people are not liking Coles? Well, the total is going to be 10. 10 people don't like Coles. So that's 10 out of the total of 40 people. So 10 out of 40, 1/4 chance that someone does not like Coles. Next up, what's the probability of Woolies only? So Woolies only means that we want Woolies, but we don't want Coles. So these two things line up to give these 3 people, and that means that it's going to be those 3 people out of the total of 40 people. So that is the probability for Woolies only. Okay, moving on. We've got probabilities of Coles or Woolies. So that means we can be in the Coles section, we can be in the Woolies section, but we can't, and that's pretty much it. So the idea is we want to count all these people. So pretty much we want to count these 9, we want to count these 21 people, we want to count these 3 people. So these are the 3 we're going to put together. We don't want this one because that's neither. We want Woolies or Coles. So it's pretty much we just don't count these 7 people here. Okay, so adding up the 21, 9 and 3, that gives us 33. So we've got a 33 chance in 40. The other way to think about it is just the only people we didn't want are these. So that's taking away 7 people out of the 40. So that leaves us over with 33 out of 40. Question 2. Complete the following two-way table. So we've got a two-way table here. We want to complete it, but at the moment we literally can't. But they've given us a clue. The events A and B are mutually exclusive. So mutually exclusive means that A and B can't happen at the same time. So i.e., A and B must be 0. So the section which is like A and B happening at the same time, that must be a 0. So that's literally how we solve this. We can assume because it's mutually exclusive, A and B happening at the same time is 0. And because we know that's a 0, so if we know that's a 0 there, then that must be a 5. 5 and 14 makes 19. 19 and something makes 9 and something makes 19, so that has to be a 10. 5 and 5 makes 10, and then 0 and 9 makes our 9. So you can pretty much use this to complete the table of values. So we end up getting something that looks like this, and that is done. We can use this to figure out probabilities for this sort of situation. Hope this helps with the questions. Good luck.